Trudeau has managed to do it again. He has finally made another step forward towards becoming a dictator that he always wanted to be. And this is no longer hyperbole. This is literally happening in Canada as we speak. Today, the government has put forth a vote where 185 MPs voted in favor of the act continuing going for the next 30 days and 151 voted against it. But the problem is once these are put into place, it's very hard to get rid of them when the people will continue to vote in your favor. Now, here's the problem. The vote itself only passed because the NDP ended up siding with him. The one issue with that is despite there not being any debate on Friday, even though there was debate Thursday, they canceled the debate due to safety concerns as police moved in to remove protesters still blockading in the streets. Ooh, very scary. It's not like you could debate while peaceful protesters are listening to music in the streets. Oh my goodness, what a safety hazard. But of course they had to cancel that. The Bloc Québécois and the Conservative had said last week they would not support the motion on the use of the Emergencies Act in a vote. Meanwhile, and this is the big thing, the NDP had signaled their support would be contingent on there not being overreach into civil rights. And you can tell Jagmeet Singh is full of shit. One big reason is the right to protest is already in violation of civil rights. They have removed it, essentially making peaceful protests illegal. That is a problem. Jagmeet Singh is so many faces, but only one of them is faced at Trudeau, and it's the one nobody can trust. Because he even said, despite there being like a overreach into civil rights, he still supported the Emergencies Act being extended for 30 days. The Emergencies Act is subject to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Any action taken through the Act must respect Canadians' constitutional rights under the terms of the legislation. So in that case, why was it even used in the first place to quell peaceful protesters? Why? Because they could spin the narrative the way that they wanted. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. There's footage, thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours of footage showing these people being as peaceful as can be. No harassment, nothing. I don't care what you tell me in my comments, none of that shit. I speak reality. And the reality is, these are rights that are being violated. Extremely violated. Following the vote, the Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino, sorry, his name's hard to pronounce, and Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair were vague about whether voting on the motion was in fact a confidence vote. Mendicino said anyone who voted against invoking the act was making a clear statement that they did not have confidence in this government. Blair denied that Liberal MPs were threatened with expulsion from the caucus if they broke ranks with the party and voted against the motion. So, if even Global News is trying to tell us that they had to make sure that people weren't being swayed in a particular way, what does that typically mean based on mainstream media? Well, it means the literal. It means the exact opposite. It means that people were being pressured to make their vote in a particular way or else they were gone. This was an important vote, he said. I believe that overwhelmingly our caucus and other parliamentary colleagues understood the importance of this vote. Frankly, the question of individuals' reasons for voting are now moot. In my opinion, the vote passed and we will proceed. Does that sound like somebody who's thinking of the common man? Or does that sound like somebody who has a plan? I'll leave that up to you to decide. As we continue going on here, the interim Tory leader Candice Bergen accused the government of using the act as a power grab and tabled a motion to revoke the measures following the vote. Liberal and NDP MPs will need to explain to Canadians why they are continuing to enforce a national state of emergency that gives the federal government far-reaching powers and authority, she said in a statement. The government has repeatedly justified the use of the Emergencies Act, with Trudeau saying there are concerns about the possibility that the convoy could return and force blockades again. Nothing about violence, nothing about harassment, nothing about any terrorist kind of actions that are being taken that he liked to peddle to the media. Even though the blockades are lifted across border openings right now, even though things seem to be resolving very well in Ottawa, this state of emergency is not over, said Trudeau at a news conference on Monday. Does that sound like somebody who's going to be giving up their powers just because a protest stopped? It doesn't. There continues to be a real concerns about the coming days, he added. In an interview with West Block's Mercedes Stevenson on Sunday, Blair gave no timeline or criteria on when the measures could be lifted, saying that a threat still exists. But where? Where's the threat? The common man? You have all the power, Trudeau. How could you be so small in your thinking and so small in your mindset that you think anybody will believe anything you say now? It's understood where you stand, and it's on the wrong side of history. We understand the magnitude and significance of the measures that we've brought in place. They are only going to be in place as long as they are required, he said. But what are the requirements? Why be so vague? Why not put an immediate end date to it? Why not specify? And the reason he won't specify is because he wants to be able to extend this as far as he can. Since Friday, police have arrested 191 people, towed 79 vehicles, and laid 389 criminal charges on 107 people, which Interim Chief Steve Ball said range from obstructing police, disobeying a court order to assault. Pfft, bullshit. Anyway, let's continue going on. There's no doubt that the last few weeks have been difficult, that the last years have been painful, and that there are still challenges ahead of us, but we can't let anger divide us, said Trudeau at a news conference. Anger's not dividing us, Trudeau. Your actions are. The way you are is dividing us. You are the reason we're divided. Your rhetoric, the way you speak, the way you villainize people for no reason, it's all on you. You are the villain here, Trudeau. More than ever now is the time to work together. It's also the time to reflect on the kind of future we want for our country. There's a lesson for all of us in what happened this month. We don't know when the pandemic is going to end, but that doesn't mean we cannot start healing as a nation. It can when you are constantly reopening the wound. As soon as the stitches are in place, you're punching the wound and making them reopen. You are the problem, Trudeau. You have been the problem, and you will forever be the problem if you don't realize that your actions will have consequences. And the consequences in this case are the fact that nobody, and I mean nobody but the sheep that follow you, are going to believe a word coming from that mouth. Even though every single word you say has no meaning behind it, you still manage to speak a lot. And that's really impressive. I wish I had the talent to say 1,000 words and still mean nothing. It's really quite impressive. But why don't we take a look and let them say it for themselves, why don't we? Why don't we go to a little video here where Deputy Prime Minister and the Prime Minister both kind of allude to the fact that they're going to be keeping these powers for a little bit longer than they're telling us they will. So why don't we take a look here? So here she is. Let's let her start, and then immediately we'll go right into Trudeau just saying essentially the same thing, but in his standard, overly political, nonsensical way.
In terms of the financial instruments which our government is using right now to act against these illegal blockades and illegal occupation, we reviewed very, very carefully the tools at the disposal of the federal government. And we used all the tools that we had prior to the invocation of the Emergencies Act, and we determined that we needed some additional tools. Now, some of those tools, we will be putting forward measures to put those tools permanently in place.
Permanently in place. That means these tools, the ones they're using where they can track your bank accounts, where they can see where your money comes from, and they can freeze it on command without needing a warrant or anything. This is what they're implementing. In other words, they're not going to put you in prison. They're going to make it impossible for you to live if you don't follow their beliefs. This is the face of somebody who is on a leash from somebody higher up than them. You can tell by how they stutter, how they don't know exactly what they're talking about, and the way that they're trying to word the situation that they're in. These people are literally making it so that if you think incorrectly or you support a cause they don't want you to support, they can freeze your accounts and ostracize you. They can set you up for failure just for not agreeing. That doesn't sound like freedom to me. But let's continue, why don't we?
The authorities of FinTrack, I believe, do need to be expanded to cover crowdsourcing platforms and payment platform and their payment providers. So that is something that we need to do and we will do, and that needs to be in place permanently.
Before we jump into Trudeau's side of things, the reason they're going after these crowdsourcing and fundraising sites is because they weren't able to be targeted before. But if they decide that you are fundraising for something they don't want you to fundraise for, or you're supporting something they don't want you to support, you're basically kicked aside. Your accounts are frozen, you're nothing, you're trash. That's how they see you. Let's see what Justin Trudeau has to say when he's questioned.
Gates have been cleared. Parliament Hill has been cleared. Do we still need it?
As I said, the Emergencies Act is not something to undertake lightly, and it's something that needs to be momentary, temporary, and proportional. That's why every single day I'm receiving briefings and we are reflecting on how much longer the Emergencies Act needs to be in place. We don't want to keep it in place a single day longer than necessary. But even though the blockades are lifted across border openings right now, even though things seem to be resolving very well in Ottawa, this state of emergency is not over. There continues to be real concerns about the coming days. But we will continue to evaluate every single day whether or not it is time and we are able to lift this state of.
Do you not see what he's saying? Even though the initial reason that they even invoked the Emergencies Act is over with, they are continuing with it because they are fear-mongering with it. There are no threats. There are no reasons to keep it as of now. Why make it extend? There isn't a reason. Except for whatever he's able to manipulate the masses into believing, there is absolutely no reason for this. There never was. There was never a state of emergency. And I'm sorry to the 6,000 people that lived on that fucking block, but get some damn earbuds. Close your damn windows. Maybe you would have been able to catch some sleep. I have no sympathies for you when this man, the person you're defending, is a tyrant. It is not okay for him to invoke this law. It is not okay for him to extend this law. And for the fact that he even admitted that, oh, the problem's over with now, but we're just extending it, but it'll be temporary. Have you ever heard a dictator say the same thing? Oh, wait a minute. Every single one of them in history has done the exact same thing. Every single one. If you can name me one that didn't, put it in the comments. Do it. Go ahead. I challenge you. Let's see. Let's see who can actually bring somebody up that was a dictator that didn't pull these same methods. I guarantee you won't find one. Even Hitler did the same thing. And he was the worst of them. Well, maybe not the worst, but he was the worst one I can think of. The fact that this even passed shows that there's a bigger picture that they're trying to play here. What that picture is, I have no idea. I don't know what the painting's going to look like when he's done painting it. But it's not going to look as good as whatever Bob Ross painted. It's going to look like a nightmare. And this worries Canadians. That face that you're looking at right there is the face of a liar. It is the face of a tyrant. And it is a face of somebody who cares zero about his citizens. I don't want to hear how, oh, Justin Trudeau's doing what he needs to do. He's already done it. It lasted a week. He did what it wanted it to do, but now he's expanding. And when expansion happens, it tends to continue. So, I hope you're ready to vote, and I hope you're ready to vote this tyrant out. Because he does not belong in office, and neither does his deputy prime minister. Both of them belong behind bars where they can't hurt anyone anymore. This is the soulless eyes of a man who once was human, but is now just a husk of who he used to be. He's even more evil than his father ever was. I don't care if this sounds like I'm coming off judgmental or anything like that, but this needs to be said. Regardless of if they freeze my accounts or any of that shit, I needed to say it. I needed to put this out here, and he needs to know that nobody, except for the people that follow him, wanted this. And I use the term people very loosely because they only speak in bah. So, follow your shepherd to the doom he's bringing you, but I will not be a follower. I think for myself, and I hope you do too. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I hope you're thinking for yourself. I hope you're digging on your own. I hope you're finding your own information instead of having it spoon-fed to you. People need to start doing that themselves. It's hard to say from my perspective of things because I've always thought for myself. I don't get influenced by the media. I don't get influenced by people. I see what I see and I make my own judgments. It's time for everybody to start doing the same. Because as long as he's in office, he will limit the amount of things that you can see and judge for yourself. And that is dangerous. It is highly dangerous. And I hope beyond hope, that this will only last the 30 days that he says it will. Because if it goes any further than that, we have a problem. And that problem is going to be bigger than we could ever imagine for Canada. And Canada was one of the freest countries out there. Keep that in mind. Now Canada has the shock collar on it. Let's just see how much we can bark before he decides to pull the little or push the little button that shocks us. That's all we can do now. It's really sad to see. And for a while there, I was actually proud to call myself Canadian. Now it's kind of a stain on the legacy, isn't it? Those flags behind him, there are not the flags he represents. Sure, the red might be, but that white behind it in the middle definitely isn't. Anyways, guys, love you all. See you all next time. And hopefully, I hope, beyond hope, that we end up in a world where shit like this doesn't have to happen just to make a point. If only he had just actually used this time and effort that he put into this to just speak to people, instead of using his non-answers and all of the words in the dictionary that he could use to dodge as many questions as he could. It's like watching him be Neo in the Matrix. He's just dodging every question. It's just sad to see it. People didn't wake up as much as I would have hoped. Bye.